If you're an introvert, I'm sure at some point in your life, you've probably felt like you were less than, just because you're quiet. But as a fellow introvert, I am here to tell you that that ends today. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about 5 tips, not how to solve or cure being an introvert, because number 1, it's not a problem and there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. And number 2, I don't think it's something that you can change. I think that we are wired that way. Some people are wired as introverts, some people are wired as extroverts. And that will bring me to my first tip. My number 1 tip will be own your energy. Now, what I mean by that is, like I alluded to, you can't change from being an introvert to an extrovert. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's more about embracing it. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just need to be present, right? People need to have some sort of respect for you and respect for your presence. And that doesn't mean you have to be loud or vocal or a social butterfly, as some people might say. It's more or less about protecting your energy. Don't waste it, because as I'm sure a lot of you guys know and can relate to, when you are around people or a big group of people, especially people that you're not comfortable with or you don't know, your energy kind of just drains on its own. It's very exhausting to be around people that you don't know. Being in big crowds, it becomes very uncomfortable. And yes, like after an hour, a couple hours, you'll start to notice like your energy goes away. But people respect those who claim their energy, right? And as long as you're calm, grounded, and observant, there's nothing wrong with it. To be honest, power is often quiet. And that'll bring me to my second tip. Be prepared. Don't just wing it. Now, what I mean by prepared is, I'm sure you've gotten this. I have gotten this plenty of times, that people assume you're boring just because you don't talk, just because you're not a social butterfly, just because you're not very outgoing. You must be boring, and that must be all you do is just sit in silence, and you don't have any hobbies, and you're just a blob, right? But that's not it at all, right? When you're going into these social events, these social situations, group gatherings, parties, whatever it might be, you just can do a little preparation for it. Just come prepared. And what I mean by that is, plan what you're going to say in key situations, right? Whether this is a date, an interview, you can still plan for certain things, and I know you can't obviously plan a whole conversation, but if you just have some sort of like filler words or filler conversations you can go to, depending on what environment you're going to, like I said, whether it's a family gathering, friends, party, a date, anything like that, any type of social gathering, you can just be prepared. Even if you just want to journal about it, right? Do a little rehearsal, just have go-to responses, right? And this is not fake, right? This is not fake or not being you. It's a strategy. It's being you, but just be prepared, because I'm sure you guys have been there. There's so many times where I wasn't very prepared, and like a conversation might have happened or someone might have said something, and I look back and I regret not saying something, or I wish I would have said it this way or said this. I should have mentioned this or asked this question, or maybe I should have jumped into this conversation, because I, for one, am not a very I'm not a person to jump into conversations unless I'm invited into them. And I'm assuming, I guess that's part of the introvert in me, is I'm not I'm not going to jump into people's conversations. Like I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be, there's not going to be a conversation around me and they're going to be talking. I'm just going to be like, oh, hey, look at me. Well, that's cool. I did this. I just don't do that. And that'll bring me to tip number 3 is use your strengths. So now, in order to use your strengths, you have to know your weaknesses, as I just mentioned one of mine. And that's okay, because usually if you're not talking, right, typically introverts are more observant. Extroverts are more, hey, like very, happy and, I don't want to use the word happy, but more just like outgoing-ish. They're kind of just like free in the moment. So they're not as observant as you might be. So you might notice more body language, tones, patterns. So overall, you're listening more, which actually builds stronger relationships. So it's not about out talking people, it's just understanding them, and you have to use that as an advantage. By you being more observant, you'll be able to, maybe get into that conversation that you're not a part of, because you're observing, you're listening to every word they're saying, you're observing their tone, you're observing their attitude about something, right? And for example, like if someone's like ranting about something and they're like, going crazy about it, and they're like really saying like, oh man, they don't like this, whatever topic it is, and maybe there's something that in that topic that you could chime in like, yeah man, I don't like this either. Like just one little sentence like, yeah, maybe it's sports, right? And you're a Cowboys fan, right? You're talking about football, and someone's talking about the Giants or Jets, which happens to me a lot because I live in New Jersey. I'm a Cowboys fan. And someone might, maybe not even a Cowboys fan, just someone that's just, bashing the Giants or Jets, and like you can just chime in and be like, yeah, man, I hate those Giants, or just something like that, or say, oh yeah, well, Daniel Jones isn't on the Giants anymore, but that's what used to be my go-to, is Daniel Jones is trash. And then it's like, oh yeah, like, and then it's like, you kind of invited yourself in the conversation, but like you're agreeing with that person. So like they're naturally going to be like, oh yeah, they're going to want to talk to you more, and they're going to want you more to elaborate on it. And then you'll see, once you like get going, once you're in that conversation, everything becomes more comfortable, everything becomes more smooth, everything becomes more organic. And then you're not thinking about, the whole, oh man, what do I say? Well, I'm nervous, or I have anxiety. Like you're not even thinking about that anymore, because like you're present, you're in the moment, and you're in that conversation. And that'll bring me to my next tip number 4. Small circles is always better than big crowds. Now, this is for anyone, whether you're introvert or extrovert. Listen, you don't need 100 friends. You need to understand this. Everyone needs to understand this. You just need the right couple, whether that's 2, 3, 4, even if it's just one person. It doesn't matter. There's no way you can have deep, loyal relationships with 100 people. There's just no way. So instead of focusing on getting a bunch of friends, just focus on getting a few, and focus on building deep and loyal relationships with them. There's no point of, trying to stretch yourself thin, right? Be more intentional on who gets your energy, which I think another strength that introverts have is they're more focused on who they give their energy to, opposed to someone that's a little more social. They just give their energy to everyone. And there's really nothing wrong with either way. But what I'm saying is introverts have that as an advantage, because it's always quality over quantity. So that'll bring me to my last tip. Tip number 5 is really just speak when it matters. When you speak, make it count. Don't just, I'm not the biggest fan of small talk, but I've adapted to it a little bit more. But when you speak, just, say what you mean, and say it with your energy, and, don't just talk about like random stuff, you can, introverts, they gain respect by being thoughtful. So just be thoughtful, just be present in the moment. Like I said earlier with the sports, like don't just start talking about random stuff, right? Because it would be kind of, I guess you'd kind of make it awkward if people are talking about sports and they're like in mid-conversation and you just start talking about, I don't know, Barbie dolls or something. It's very like, it's a bit of an extreme example, but still, you get my point. It's just, you don't have to overthink it, right? As long as you're speaking on the topic that's being presented, you don't have to be Einstein. You just have to be thoughtful. People listen more when you actually talk less. But you're actually saying more, because it's like think about it, right? When that quiet person starts to talk, everyone's like, whoa, they're listening to them, right? So and I know that might put some people on the spot and make them even more nervous to talk or to say anything. But again, like they're not going to really look at it like that, right? So, it's about just choosing your moments and owning them, right? You don't have to jump into every conversation. It's just choosing the right spots to talk and knowing what to talk about, and knowing what to say. So, like I said, being an introvert isn't something to fix. It's something to use. It's something to use to your advantage. And it's who you are. You can still be a confident person by not, being an outgoing, extroverted person. There's nothing wrong with that. And I know, I made a video a few months ago about, being an introvert is a life hack. And I truly believe it is. But you can't go through life hating yourself or the way that you're wired to be an introvert. And you can't look at it as a bad thing, because it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing, and you should embrace it. Everyone should embrace who they are in general. But someone as an introvert, and I've been an introvert my whole entire life, and that was something I struggled with a lot earlier when I was younger as a kid. And now I'm just someone that's a lot more comfortable in his own skin and in his own body, and accepts who I am, and realize that there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. And I want to just pass that message along and spread the word. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment down below about your thoughts, feedback on what I said. Drop a tip as well, my fellow introverts. Drop any tips that you might have that I didn't mention in this video. And I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.